everybody! Are you excited to hear about some awesome books? Great, I'm glad! So at the end of last summer, I made a video in which I quickly reviewed all the books that I had read that summer, and I'm going to do that again this year, and so I have 7 books to talk to you about, so I'm gonna get started. So this wasn't the first book I read over the summer, but it definitely became my favorite, and that is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by an author whose name I will butcher. It's about these two guys named Aristotle and Dante who meet over the summer and instantly befriend one another. There's not one huge conflict like you'd find in other books, but everything comes together in the end, and it's really beautiful. The best thing about this book is how it's written, because there's so many gut-punching lines and so many really profound things, but it somehow doesn't come off as being pretentious. There's this one quote that I really love towards the beginning, and that's, "That afternoon, I learned 2 new words, inscrutable and friend. Words were different when they lived inside of you." And the other best thing about this book is the characterization. There are not many characters at all. There's Aristotle and his parents, and then there's Dante as his parents, and very few other characters. Because of this, they all have very distinct personalities. Dante, you learn, is very close with his parents, and he's a very organized person and marches to his own drum. And Aristotle is this really reserved guy who has all these walls around him, and he hasn't really let anyone enter them until he meets Dante. My second favorite book that I read over the summer is the prequel to the Mysterious Benedict Society trilogy, and that is The Extraordinary Education of Nicholas Benedict by Trenton Lee Stewart. The book is about a 9-year-old super genius narcoleptic boy named Nicholas Benedict, and he is currently at a new orphanage. What I really loved about this book was just Nicholas Benedict, the character. It's very, very improbable that you're going to find an actual 9-year-old who is so absolutely clever and meticulous when it comes to planning things. But fictional Nicholas Benedict is, and it is so much fun to read. I mean, he comes up with all these really cool ideas and stuff. I mean, even if it's just for fending off bullies, that is even interesting. And you know, along the road, he makes friends, he makes some mysterious friends. The plot in and of itself is not the most unique thing, but I think the character of Nicholas makes this book a fantastic book. The first book I read this summer, which I actually do not have a copy of, was The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. The book is about a really beautiful man named Dorian Gray. He gets a picture painted of him, and his one true wish is that he would not have to age, he would maintain his beauty, meanwhile the painting would age. And guess what ends up happening? You guessed it, that does. What made the book and also kind of ruined the book for me was Oscar Wilde's way of writing, because everything he says is so elegant and beautiful, but it's literally everything he says. At some points it felt like every other sentence was something you would see in like a hipster picture on Tumblr. And individually, those were quotes that, oh my god, that's profound and awesome, but when it's all compiled into one book, it kind of got annoying at times. But in the end, the endearing plot was what mattered most, and I really did end up enjoying the book. The next book I read was a middle grade book called When You Reach Me by Rebecca Steed, one of the two. It's about a girl named Miranda who lives in New York City, and she's been getting these really mysterious notes from some anonymous person. She kind of wants to figure out who it is. It was a lot of fun to read, you know, it was a good book. There wasn't anything bad I could say about it, but it wasn't anything special. If you own it, read it. If you don't, you don't have to go out of your way to get it. The next book, which I don't know if I should technically count it in here, but I'm going to anyways, The Myth of Sisyphus and Other Essays by Albert Camus. The reason why I feel like I shouldn't be allowed to have this in there is because I didn't actually finish the book. I'd like to say I got maybe 1/2 of the way through. Before I go into why, I want to read you the first sentence of this book. "There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide." The main essay is basically a counter-argument to people who think that what's the point of living if there's no inherent meaning in life. And let me tell you, this book is very interesting. If you read it carefully enough, you can get some very interesting points that, I mean, things that I would have never thought of on my own. But at a certain point, it became redundant, and I felt like I wasn't learning anything new, and the interest level just kept on waning, and I couldn't bring myself to keep on reading. This is on the list of books that I want to read in the future, so hopefully I'll be able to go back to it and finish it one of these days. But yeah, it was very interesting for what I did get to read. Next is my summer reading book, a book you probably know a lot about. It's Paper Towns by John Green. I'm not going to go into it much, but this was my 5th time reading it, and I enjoyed it the most this time because I think my whole anger towards the Manic Pixie Dream Girl phenomenon has increased as time went on, and I think for the first time I really saw what John was trying to get at when he wrote this book, and it was just a really cool reading experience, and I love this book. Finally, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to hate me for this, I read The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger and didn't like it at all. My first argument, which isn't the most valid, which is why I'm getting it out of the way in the beginning, is that Holden repeats the phrase "I really do," or "I really don't," or "she really does" so many times in the book, and it gets so annoying to read. But on to actual content, if there's anything to talk about. This is one of those plotless books. Stuff happens, but nothing happens. And I know the meaning that Colden is supposed to represent the reader and you're supposed to get that at the end, and I do, but that doesn't mean that I don't absolutely hate him for being a whiny white guy. And hey, I'm a whiny white girl occasionally. Wow, privilege, that's how these things work. And I just could not find a redeeming factor in reading this book. It was not something I enjoyed. Maybe it's something that will be fun to analyze, but the reading experience was not the best. So I'm sorry to those people who really like this book, but it just wasn't for me. I just finished filming and I feel like I filmed for a really long time, so if I did, I apologize, but this has been my Books of Summer video, and you will see me next time. Bye!